Hello, BookTube. Recently, Michael K Vaughan did a video about the 15 science fiction books he plans to read next. The ones that are on his immediate docket. The ones he'll read before he reads any other science fiction. And it was a fascinating list. And then David Wiley took up that idea and did the same thing himself. Made a video in which he lists the 15 science fiction books that he's going to read next. And then Randy Ray, the literate Texan, chimed in from Driftwood Ranch and made the same kind of video. That constitutes a bandwagon. And so I am jumping on board. This is a wave, a tidal wave. All you other science fiction readers have got to do this video now. So I thought I would do the same thing and talk about a bit the next 15 science fiction novels that I will read. Starting with this one. This is The Sleeper's War. Book 1 of Alpha Wave by Jonathan Mayberry and Weston Oches. A little bit of a dumb cover there. A little bit of the vibe of I let my kid Photoshop my cover. That you would not have a curve on a spaceship like that. You might on a shaving razor, but not on a spaceship. But this is the story of humanity's fight against an alien race called the Flock. And they win. Humanity wins with the aid of super advanced super soldiers, who once the Flock are defeated are not needed anymore. So they are put in suspended animation, and the Flock are enslaved, indentured on Earth. And you can guess the rest of the plot. They rebel. They're plotting the whole time for their great big comeback, and that might necessitate reviving the sleepers, reviving those super soldiers. I don't know anything about the co-writer here, but Jonathan Mayberry I have read a lot and really like. So depending on how much of a hand he had in this collaboration, I will probably really like this thing. I am a little bit familiar with fictional collaborations, and you can't ever really tell. Sometimes one of the two names is merely decorative, and they are not going to have a strong narrative impact on the story. Sometimes it's a true partnership. Sometimes even you do one chapter and I'll do the next chapter, and then we'll edit the whole mess together at the end. Sometimes even that, which means you'll get a lot of one of the co-authors. So I will definitely give this a try, and we'll see. Then let's see here. The next one is by Dwayne Worrell, and it's called Androne. And this involves an event called the 99, in which the military bases of the world are simultaneously destroyed by an unknown force, by an unknown enemy. And there is a lineup, once again, similar to Sleeper's War. There's a lineup of these super advanced mech suits called Mandrones. And we have a main character and then a supporting characters that are going to armor up and assess what the 99 even is. This is a book, I guess, I haven't read this, but this is a book where even the enemy's nature is not known. And then somehow defeat it. And I think, like a lot, probably half the books on this list, I think this thing was served up to me by one of those daily ebook deal aggregator services that I've been using lately. I'm singing the praises of them. I must have added 200 books to my Kindle just in the last couple of months from when I learned about these things. I now subscribe to as many of them as I can find. A lot of them are no good. A lot of them will serve up, $1.99, $2.99, $3.99 ebooks. I'm not going to do that. But a lot of them serve up ebooks for free. And I say yes to every one of those. So this may be one of those that I learned of, but this is coming up. So if it's not out already, it's coming up. Then we have a mainstream press thing. This is, I think, volume 3 or volume 2 of the best science fiction of the year. Just a standard anthology. That's, I'm pretty sure, mainstream. I'm pretty sure that I'm getting this in the normal course of things. It and the next book raised my hackles just a little. They get my willies up just a little for reasons that we've covered on this channel before, which is that in 2023, you don't know if your anthology is going to be assembled on literary grounds or on political grounds. Are these stories going to be picked because of how much the editors like them? Or are they going to be picked because the authors on Twitter are saying the correct canonical opinions? on hot subject X, Y, and Z. Of course, if it's the latter, I have no interest in reading this at all. And too often lately in anthologies and also in square-bound science fiction periodicals, I have found that that is the sole, obviously the sole and only criteria. So now, anthologies used to please the daylights out of me. I used to love them more than anything because they could set you on the path to learning about so many new authors. Now they fill me with dread. Both this one and the next one, the big book of Cyberpunk, which could be terrific. This could absolutely be terrific, but will it be? I don't know. This will have a long introductory essay, as the big books tend to do, and then it will roam throughout the short history of Cyberpunk. Is that long introduction going to tell me, as a matter of uncontrovertible, just non-controversial fact, that Cyberpunk as a genre originated in Nigeria? Is it going to do that? Is it going to tell me that the first and most prominent 10 Cyberpunk authors were BIPOC or non-binary or trans? Is it going to try to tell me that? Those things are factually not true. And the only reason that anthologies that posture like that do that is because they know you can't say that. They know you can't say what is that your claim is factually not true, because they're waiting for that. That's the response they're trying to elicit, so that they can mob you. So I don't know. With anthologies now, they make my gut tense up, because I don't know what I'm going to be getting. Is this going to be a literary agenda, which is the only agenda for an anthology, or is it going to be some political agenda or social agenda? I have no idea. I'll find out. Big Book of Cyberpunk really does appeal, that's for sure. Then we can do, this is The Breakthrough Effect by Douglas Richards. I'm pretty sure that this is also one of those things that just got sent to me, that it got brought to my attention by some aggregator site. And from what I remember, the plot of this basically boils down to a special ops agent against Elon Musk. there's a squintillionaire tech genius who's constantly coming up with one tech innovation after another, and no one can figure out how he's doing it or where these advances are coming from. And I guess the narrative lets us know that he is a dedicated enemy of mankind. The one willing suspension of disbelief in the book, I would imagine. Since usually the squintillionaires who are dedicated enemies of mankind don't need you to sniff that fact out. They will outright tell you that. They will outright tell you, I plan on trashing this planet because either A, I have bought an entire archipelago of islands and reinforced them as my bolt hole in the case of the you-know-what hitting the fan, or I am leaving the planet. I am going to colonize some other planet. So I don't really care what I do to the rest of you. We'll see. It's a touchy subject, of course. It's a touchy premise. There are currently on Earth 10 billion humans. And that is the total human population. And yet, there are 4 individual men on Earth. 4 individual people out of 10 billion. Who between them have half the money of all of those 10 billion. That is as dystopian a situation as anything that I have ever read in any science fiction novel. And it's true. It's actually real in the world. So I don't know what you're going to do with that. We will see. I imagine that this squintillionaire will be unmasked, revealed, as the big, in a very satisfying plot twist, but maybe not. That's the thing, is that I don't know a lot of these authors. A lot of them are indie authors, so I don't know anything about them. I don't know what their old tricks are. This next one, I think, is mainstream published. This is Bridge by Lauren Bukes, about the daughter of a mad scientist, the daughter of a woman who was working really hard to understand the multiverse and parallel alternate dimensions. What breaks off with every quantum breaking point, where these realities spawn, and is it possible to use some kind of bridge? In the book, it has a very evocative name, to get to those alternate dimensions. And of course, that scientist is dead, and her daughter, sure, this is full of interesting speculation about alternate realities, but the daughter mainly just wants to go to a reality where her mother is still alive. And plot ensues. Complications flow from there. An alternate reality story should be really good. I always find that subject really, really interesting in spite of the fact that the double slit experiment notwithstanding, I don't believe in alternate realities. I don't believe they exist. I don't believe there's ever been anything that science has shown, including the famous double slit experiment, that in any way even lightly indicates them. And once again, you know, in a situation like this, the scientists who in every other situation are perfectly happy to invoke David Hume really ought to invoke him here, which is to reject the greater miracle. If you've got an experiment and it's showing you something and you can expostulate from what it's showing you, one of two things. Either A, we don't understand this result maybe because we made a mistake, or B, because of this result, there's an infinitude of alternate universes living side by side by side by side by side. Well, I know which of those is the greater miracle, so we will see. Then this next one is a known quantity to me. Again, I don't remember if it was served up by one of those aggregator sites, or maybe I just had a watch for it on Amazon. But this is the Forgotten Galaxy series. This is by M.R. Forbes. This is book number 2, Galaxy Unstable. And it follows up Galaxy Unknown, which I read and liked. It's the story of one particular character who is sort of inadvertently thrown into clash against a standard galaxy swarming empire. In this case, rather alarmingly called the Legion. It's not my Legion. It's just some bad Legion. I resolutely insist that my Legion of Superheroes is not bad. Although the huge Legion of Superheroes fan fiction epic story that I have been germinating and picking and pecking away at forever, the basic plot of that novel is what would happen if the Legion were tempted to become evil, to become totalitarian. What would happen if that were true? And that idea flowed naturally from me hunting around for alternate reality Legion members. When I started to think about this massive Legion of Superheroes fanfiction story, I automatically thinking about augmenting the ranks. And why wouldn't the Legion be 50 members strong? And why wouldn't 20 of those members be Kryptonian level powerful? Why wouldn't they? If they're all available. And they are. Believe you me, I don't need to make up anybody. They're all available. They're all in stories, in Legion or in Superboy. That was a lot of fun, scouting around for alternate members like that. But this second one, if I remember correctly, it's been a while. I don't know. I think I remember Galaxy Unknown ending basically on a cliffhanger, where our main character is sort of adrift and needs help. And the help that answers is a pirate ship with a ramshackle crew that he's sort of going to have to weld into shape. That he's going to have to make it into a coherent unit. So this will have echoes of Guardians of the Galaxy, I would imagine. But we will see. The author has enough credit in the Bank of Steve, so I will read it anyway. Then we have Gary Whitta. I think this is conventionally published. I think this is mainstream publishing. But as you can see, from a lot of the design of these indie books, it really doesn't matter anymore. I've been making this point forever. It doesn't matter anymore. If you've got $2,000 to spend, hire a professional editor, hire a professional designer, hire a professional cover artist, and Bob's your uncle. Then the only difference between you and a mainstream published science fiction book is distribution in mainstream bookstores. And who goes to mainstream bookstores? In case you hadn't been to a mainstream bookstore lately, the cafe lattes cost $30 US. The books are good. God knows how much they cost. Who goes to retail bookstores anymore? Now, it means nothing. It also means nothing because mainstream published authors are full of horror stories about how their mainstream publishing venue, which takes 90% of what their book earns, tells them, yeah, we're going to send you a box of copies of your book. Hit the road. Do all sorts of publicity. Knock yourself out. They don't fly authors to events anymore or bus them to events anymore. They barely do the one thing they claim separates them from indie publishing. So there really isn't much of a difference here. I'm just citing it because I think this came out from a major publisher. This is called Gundog. And this is a very similar story to Sleeper's War, where Earth has been conquered by a living technological species called the mech, and is downtrodden and beaten under the metal foot. And there is a mech-busting suit of armor. What was the other one? The Androne? There's a mech-busting suit of armor that I assume can duplicate itself. that is locked away in a bunker somewhere, and our main hero, she has to find it and maybe be compatible enough to wear it and spark a resistance to the mech. It's a well-worn plot outline, but then all of these things are, and that's nothing to complain about. I'm not asking any of these books to reinvent the wheel. You give me an alien invasion story, or a Grey Goo story, or a Galactic Empire story, or an evil Galactic Empire story, I'm going to nod and just say, okay, yeah, the concept, of course, is familiar to me. I've read more science fiction than I have cells in my body. But I don't care about that. I care about how you do it. I care about how well executed it is. So, yeah, okay, so this is a Galactic Empire story. Okay, let's see what you'll do with it. I'm not gonna ooh and ah over the idea. Then this next one will definitely be a mainstream. This is probably Bane. This is More Than Honor, which is David Drake and S.M. Sterling taking up, right, among others, I think this is an anthology of a bunch of people, writing stories set in David Weber's universe of Honor Harrington. And if I remember correctly, this is the first time they've been collected in an actual print hardcover. I think they were online. A lot of them were online only. I could be wrong about that. I admit, the Honor Harrington series and the Honor Harrington verse, the Honor verse, has sprawled out beyond my ready mental recall. I haven't been keeping up with it, although I like it. So maybe that was wrong. Maybe I should have been doing that. So I'll get this in the mail, and we'll see how many times it says or alludes to something that I just don't get, that I just don't understand at all. Then we have something by David Pedreira. This is The Never Wars, which is, I gather, a kind of combination of Guardians of the Galaxy and also something like The Expanse, the scruffy, failed technology backdrop of The Expanse, the kind of monkey wrenches in space atmosphere that you get there. I have a feeling that that's this. Notice again, this is indie. I think this is indie published. You'd never know it. This is just as pretty, just as attractive and interesting as all the others. But this is about a group of special ops who are disreputable. They always cross the line. They are in hot water with civilian and military authorities, and they have been told that if they can successfully complete 10 missions, each more outlandish than the other, then they will be reinstated. Then they will be, all honor will be restored. So in addition to Guardians of the Galaxy and The Expanse, there's also a bit of Suicide Squad, where if you catastrophically pay off your misdeeds, we can set the table right again. I tend not to like that kind of a premise, that it smacks way too much of Joe Abercrombie. It smacks way too much of all of my heroes are not heroes. All of my characters are raging a-holes because I'm a raging a-hole and I want justification for being that. So I'm going to write a story in which the underlying assumption is that everyone in the entire universe is a raging a-hole. And so there's no one to root for, and you're supposed to root for that fact. You're supposed to be happy that there's no one to root for. Oh, how big a raging a-hole is this character? I don't know about that. Obviously, it's popular. Those sorts of things have die-hard readers, but I encounter enough raging a-holes in my real life. I really don't want a book that is subtly urging me to root for the biggest raging a-hole in the cast. So we'll see if this is that. The plot is certainly giving me that idea, but I could be wrong. This next one is an example of a splinter of science fiction that I did not know existed. Some of you are more into the science fiction scene than I am. Some of you must certainly have known that there was a thing called Hope Punk. Not steampunk, but Hope Punk. I'm sure that some of you knew this. This is being billed as an example of that. This is by Ginger Booth, and this is book 1 in a series called Nexus Talks to Aliens. That is the cover, and this is about an introvert. This is part of. I gather that this is sort of a spin-off of the author's Thrive series. It came up a lot when I was looking at this book, but I don't think I've ever read any in the Thrive series. I don't think I've read even a single one. So I have no idea how many there are, and I don't know how many. I don't have any idea how indebted this will be to that series. If it's a lot indebted, then I'll be out of luck. But I didn't pay anything for this, so it'd be just fine. I think I didn't pay for it. I'm pretty sure. Either it got sent to me or I didn't pay for it. But this is a story about an introvert who is far more comfortable talking to alien creatures than he is talking to people. And yet, in this story, he's kind of forced to. The impression I get from the little bit that I read is that this takes place about 200 years after the author's Thrive series. But since I don't know much about the Thrive series, I don't know how much that will either help me or hurt me. Of course, my first thought when I looked at this title was that this book was about Horatio Hellpop. Which none of you are going to recognize that name. None of you are going to know Nexus, the murderer of mass murderers. This is not that. This Nexus, that's his actual name, and he doesn't wear spandex. I'm gathering that he doesn't wear spandex in the course of the book, or sleep in a test tube. So we'll see. I'll have to put up with another Nexus. This next one will definitely be mainstream published. I probably have this here already. This is The Sky Vault by Benjamin Percy. And this is the third book in a series that he is doing that started with The Unfamiliar Garden, which is, the premise of it was a gigantic comet sort of bathes Earth in its tail, and all sorts of weird things happen that don't all look scientific. A lot of them look fantasy. This is a weird thing. This is definitely an example of the book being an exponent of the author's vision. So this is not a case where, oh, you've got a dystopian story. Oh, you've got a Galactic Empire story. This is, The Unfamiliar Garden, as boring as I thought parts of it were, was very much individual. It was something that Benjamin Percy is thinking up on his own. If I remember, I will leave a link. I think I wrote a review of The Unfamiliar Garden, but it'll be the only book that I reviewed in this list. And if you're wondering, as always, if you're wondering if I reviewed something, just go to Google, type in my first and last name, and type in the name of the thing. And that ought to do it. But I'm pretty sure that I did. Pretty sure that I wrote a not favorable review of The Unfamiliar Garden. And the second book in the series is called The Ninth Metal. And I don't remember if I read it. It's entirely possible that I did not, because The Unfamiliar Garden did not impress me. In which case, I'm going to need to do it. I would imagine I'm going to need to do it before I read The Sky Vault. We will see. I'll try The Sky Vault. I'll go, I think I have it out in the other room. I'll go a few pages in. And if I get the impression that I need to read The Ninth Metal, I'm pretty sure that impression will make itself known right away. Then I'll have to backtrack. And then we have, this is still science fiction that I'm going to get to next. This still counts, but it's nonfiction. It's by Ryan Britt, and it's called The Spice Must Flow. And it's a huge compendious story of Dune. The original sources, the story of the book's original publication, the books themselves by Frank Herbert, the expanding necro-fiction empire of Brian Herbert and Kevin Anderson, the movies, the TV shows, maybe the comic books. I'm all for this. I'm not so big a fan of behind-the-scenes tell-alls. There's one of those coming out, for instance, or maybe it's out next month, of The West Wing. I don't have any inclination to read such a thing. I don't want the curtain pulled all the way back. I never watched director's tracks. I used to watch director's tracks on DVDs, for instance. I don't want to know that during a scene that I really thought was terrific, the actor was thinking about lunch. I don't want to know that. But this is not that. This is not writing a behind-the-scenes account of anything, but rather this is the author looking at the phenomenon of Dune. Fine by me. That is fascinating to me. Absolutely. Then we have... I will give this a try, but honestly, I feel like I am about ready to give up on this author. And that is not, of course, meant in any contentious way, because I know this author has hordes of fans. So he must be doing something right. He's just not doing anything right for me. Just nothing right for me. So I just must not be one of those fans. The author is John Scalzi, who I know a lot of you love. And this is his new book, Starter Villain. That is the horrifying cover, where a supervillain dies and bequeaths his supervillain lair and equipment and plans to a hapless relative who didn't know and doesn't know that it wants to be a supervillain. I don't know what to say about this author. I've read probably 6 books of his. I've never read a book of his that felt to me like it took him any more than half an hour to write. It really felt that way. And there's all sorts of easy Comic-Con jokes, the kind of thing that'll get the incels in the front rows that paid $30 to listen to you up on a stage laughing hilariously, but it's not actually funny. It's just, whether it's his serious stuff, his serious space opera, or his tongue-in-cheek stuff like this, I just think this guy's entire science fiction career has been built on dad jokes. And the whole point of dad jokes is that you make fun of them. You don't invest in them. You don't build a career on them. I don't know. I will, believe it or not, despite what I've said, I will go into this with an open mind. But this may be the last try that I give this author. It may very well be. There's no point, and there's no harm, right? It's not like a review from me one way or another is going to help or hurt him. He's got it made. He's got a gigantic army of fans that love everything he does. So maybe just part ways with this author without any judgment. I mean, I'm halfway there with Brandon Sanderson, halfway there with just saying, all right, well, the online joke about Blandon Sanderson is absolutely true. I also think it's true of John Scalzi. This is just very bland stuff. Well, then maybe that means it's working for them. It's going to make sure their great-grandchildren never work a day in their lives, but it's not working for me. So, I don't know. I'll try it, but I don't think I'll try anything more. If this doesn't do anything for me, I don't think I'll try anymore. And then we'll do the last one. We'll finish up the way we started with a collaboration between an author named Cheney and an author named Partlow. This is Taken to the Stars. I think this is indie. I'm pretty sure this was served up to me by one of those aggregator sites. Just they are a bounty. I am so glad that I did them, and I want to find more. There must be more out there. But this is the story of alien. It's an alien abduction story to start with. A likable loser is abducted, and he ends up, in a hangar bay with a whole bunch of other losers from a whole bunch of other worlds. And again, there will be a feel like a crew of misfits like Guardians of the Galaxy, but we'll see what the author does with it. I mean, likable loser humans being abducted by aliens and facing a new world and new adventures is, as I mentioned again, an extremely old, well-trod science fiction premise. I don't need it not to be. I don't require originality of premise at all. What I require is energy of execution. So, is this book taking me seriously as a reader? Does it respect my intelligence? Is it the author working as hard as he can? The author working as hard as he can is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. The author could work as hard as he can and still be bad. Boring. Trite. We'll see. We'll see. That is the last thing on my list of the 15 works of science fiction that I will be reading next, that are on my docket. The only difference between me and Randy Ray and David Wiley and Michael K Vaughan is that I'm going to have all of these done by the end of September, or perhaps by the time this video uploads, because I don't have anything else to do. So I'm not going to look at Pebble in the sky, for God's sake, and say, yeah, sometime in 2027 I may get around to this. Now, I'm going to do all these right away, because next month, these are all September releases. Next month, there will be a whole new raft of more releases, more mainstream stuff, and a lot more of this indie stuff that I'm more and more plugged into than ever. The only thing I need to remember to do, oh my God, the only thing I need to remember to do with these indie books is to talk about them. Not just show them to you now, but after I've read them, talk about them. Give them a review on Goodreads. Get their author on this channel to talk about them. That's what indie authors live and die for. How many indie authors have told me that? That the writing of the book was hard, sure, and spending the money and making sure that every little detail of the production is all correct, because you've got to do all that yourself, that's a pain, that takes time too. But the main thing, the main nightmare, is that after you've done all that, you drop this thing in the market and it disappears without a ripple. No one knows about it. No one's talking about it. I know that's true, and I have at least a little platform in which to fix that. I've got to remember to do that this time around. But those are the 15 science fiction books, fiction, nonfiction, anthology, that I will be reading next. If you are a science fiction reader, if you have a science fiction theme on your channel, I say get thee to thy bookshelves and make a video like this. I mean, if Michael K Vaughan and Randy Ray and David Wiley are all doing this, then you know it's cool. Or whatever the opposite of cool is. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. Should I do one of these for mystery and fantasy and historical fiction? We shall see. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I will see you soon. Thank you, too.